All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here on the Harmless Dave channel, talking about real music and doing it in real time for a few real people out here, just like you there and just like me here. All right. So, I'm going to talk about Journey. It's not really soap opera stuff, so I'm not going to use any soap opera music, but I am going to talk about the lack of interest in certain things that I think are kind of important when it comes to the band Journey. They recently had a milestone, and I only saw a couple of outlets cover it. Of course, this is the old media, and this isn't Steve Perry oriented stuff, so that might be another reason why there's not a lot of coverage. Before I get to the Journey stuff, though, here's John Elefante. My buddy John from Australia said, "You really need to go get this album." And so I think he sent it to me after a while because I just don't have the money to go out and buy CDs like I used to. But John Elefante, formerly from Kansas, this came out at least 2, maybe 3 years ago now. And it's really good. It's called The Amazing Grace. It's the kind of music you would expect from John. You know what was a cool rumor that I heard, which it's kind of a sad rumor, is that when Steve Walsh left Kansas a few years ago, they did ask John if he wanted his old job back. And I think he was considering it, and he needed some time to think about it. And this is from what I know. I could be wrong, but apparently he needed more time, and the band decided to just move on without him. I think him coming back would have been the perfect solution. And I think I would have waited, a while. I mean, these guys are like touring machines now, and that's the most important thing to them. Plus, they all want to be happy and get along and ride on the same tour bus, which I don't understand. Just don't I guess you need to have chemistry on stage and off stage, but that's very unusual. So anyway, folks, let me get to the Journey stuff, because who's managing? It must be CBS Records, which is managing the old Journey catalog. And they've done next to nothing when it comes to the first 3 albums, other than, hey, you can buy all 3 of these albums on 1 CD or 2 CDs or whatever, or get that 3 CD set, a little box set of the first 3 albums. But the first Journey album, the self-titled album, turned 50 years old just 3 days ago on April Fool's Day. This came out in 1975. Holy crap, Batman. How old were you in 1975? Were you -10? This is actually a pretty good album. And of course, classic rock radio stations, they could play a track or two off of this, especially in celebration of this moment. But when everything is pre-programmed and you can't get in there and fiddle with the controls because everything is sent in from one centralized cloud somewhere, you're just not in control of that. You can mention it, right? Your website, your classic rock radio station website can say, hey, Journey's self-titled album turns 50 years old today. A lot of rock history in that album. Apparently they had Prairie Prince doing some demos before they got the great Ainsley Dunbar to play on this album. The song Mystery Mountain was a co-write between Greg Raleigh, George Tickner, the late, great George Tickner, by the way, who played rhythm guitar, and Ross Valerie's wife, Diane Valerie, who I think also had a writing credit for Wheel in the Sky. So she must have been pretty good writing lyrics. But they had a single from this album. They did release a single called To Play Some Music. And it was short enough for AM radio. Only 3 minutes and 19 seconds long. Could have been a hit. Doesn't really sound like a hit. If I'm the A&R guy, I'm I'm like, yeah, I don't hear anything on this. This is a good song, but it's not a hit record. But this is a really good progressive rock, jazz rock. This is what Neil Sean really wanted to do. Neil and Greg, for that matter. And Of a Lifetime is a song that's gotten some airplay here and there. The instrumental song Cahutek, pretty sure that's how you say it, but if I'm saying it wrong, could be Cahotek or I don't know. But anyway, that's an instrumental track that um, I first heard that on a double album that I purchased called In the Beginning, which I think had most of the music from the first three albums, probably condensed the three albums down to two albums. But I thought the stuff was really good. And I was listening to, at the time, the Steve Perry era of Journey when I got that In the Beginning album. But I'm a little bit baffled that the record label doesn't put out a remastered um, CD or whatever for of this first album with maybe a bonus track or two. You know, why not? I mean, this is a great lineup with Greg and Neil and George, Ross and Ainsley. And as time has gone by, even though the critics probably trashed it, I think Rolling Stone liked it, but most everyone else didn't like it because they go back in time and they listen and they go, wait a minute, this isn't the Steve Perry stuff. Roy Haley, who produced it, is a really good producer and engineer. And from what I understand, they thought this was going to be a breakout, but it wasn't. In fact, the band would go two more albums before Herbie Herbert said, hey, we've got to change direction. And then they hired this skinny, scrawny kid from California to sing lead vocals for them. And the rest is history. But managing this catalog has not been, I guess a top priority for Columbia, which to me, I think is kind of criminal. 50 years is a big deal. If this were Led Zeppelin, I mean, every band now that celebrates a milestone, they put out, a remastered version with extra tracks and new liner notes and interviews and documentaries, but we get almost nothing. And there is a really great backstory as to how Journey was formed, how Greg and Neil got sick of being in Santana, and where Ross came from. I think Ross was hanging out with Steve Miller. There's a couple of bands I think that Ross was involved with, but it's just a good story, and there's not much being said about it. And I think I know why, because the music isn't very mainstream. It's just, it's an acquired taste, but some people love this stuff. And when you listen to it, you go, wow. First of all, the keyboard work of Greg Raleigh is spectacular throughout this album. And the guitar playing of Neil Sean is just, it's otherworldly. There are moments on this album where Neil won't be able to top himself again. He could try. Those first three albums really gives him a showcase, and they wanted to sell more records, and I understand that. Thus, this is why you hire a guy who can sing and who can write songs, and you bring in a keyboard player who is more pop-oriented in his approach to the music. Both Jonathan Cain and Steve Perry were like pouring gasoline on a fire, and the rest is history. But I think as far as history goes, this album should be celebrated and people should be talking about it. But, it just doesn't meet the requirements. It's not Don't Stop Believin', but yet it is 50 years of Journey creating songs. And so I think that's pretty cool. I mean, Neil, right? Neil, buddy, you should put out a version of one of these songs to celebrate, like work one of these songs. Maybe you and John, if you could, if you could try to get along with John, because John will sing some of the Raleigh parts if you're going to do a Raleigh song, which on this is pretty much all Greg and nobody else. Or, maybe have Arnell do it. I don't know, but this is, or call Greg up, man. Do a little reunion. I know that's that's not welcome by certain people in the organization. We saw what happened the last time Greg showed up. But yeah, this is a big deal. 50 years of Journey in vinyl and CD or recorded format. Pretty cool stuff. Anyway, before I go, one more plug for this great album by John Elefante, kind of a progressive rocker himself to some degree, pop and progressive. Very thoughtful, though. I'm talking about the lyrics. And definitely a man who follows God, and he's been following for quite some time. The album is called The Amazing Grace. So there you go, courtesy of my friends over at Escape Music, who are constantly putting out music, and I just can't keep up with it all. So in any event, folks, God bless you all. 50 years plus of Journey, and no soap opera this time, but who knows? I'm sure we'll be bringing that theme music back for something coming up soon. So hang out here. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, buy me a coffee, Patreon, YouTube memberships. I think I picked up a patron yesterday. So Patreon, that's cool. And of course, PJ Rock Super Chats. I always welcome the Super Chats. Nobody so far is able to dethrone PJ as the Super Chatter. So competition in that area would be really great.